Hey everybody, today we're looking at Wreck and Ruin, which is a Kickstarter game by Dream Big Games, and he's a first-time publisher and designer owned by Mark McKinnon. What kind of game is it, Mike?
Well, Wreck and Ruin is sort of like a Mad Max-style post-apocalyptic skirmish game in which we take control of vehicular gangs riding around the desert trying to control objectives and basically just destroy one another.
You've got me very excited, especially with the word vehicular gangs.
Vehicular gangs.
I like it.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of violence and explosions which take place in a mechanic which I'm assured is called Crash and Burn. In Wreck and Ruin, you're going to be taking on the role of one of these 4 futuristic post-apocalyptic gangs. Like the Salvos, for example, who are kind of like the plucky heroes. We've also got the Reapers, who are kind of like savages. Gone a bit crazy in the sound. Heatstroke. We've also got the Desert Kin, who are kind of like sort of nomadic cat friends.
Or Tusken Raiders.
Or Tusken Raiders. I mean, maybe. Who knows?
Just let proceed.
Don't judge a book. Don't judge a book by its And we've got the Ruin Army. And they're like futuristic cyber soldiers.
Who seem to be able to nerf everyone, but not quite.
Not quite. Because every team has a unique ability on the back of their card. And there's a whole bunch of these different cards for each team. So your unique ability might change as you play more games. You might get a different combination. But these will give you a one-time advantage during the course of the game based on who you're playing. Each gang is comprised of 5 vehicles of 4 different types. You've got 2 motorbikes, a buggy, a wrecker, and a big rig. And they're going to race across the desert trying to find these 4 objectives and capture them before your opponents can. Whoever has the most objectives at the end of the game is the winner.
So the way the round works is we start the round off drawing an event card, which can do a plethora of things. For example, random lightning strikes on everyone, or everyone gets taken by oil slick and rotates around the board a little bit. Lots of fun ways to mess up everyone's day. Then each player is going to take their turn. And so player 1 will do the event. He'll take his 5 actions for his turn. Then player 2 will resolve the event for himself and then do his 5 actions, and so on. You can assign a maximum of 2 actions to any one vehicle. So that allows you to do 1 action per vehicle, or 2 actions on one and 2 on another and 1 on another.
I want to do all 5 with the big rig.
You can't do the same action twice, so you can't move twice.
Oh.
So the movement's quite interesting. You can assign a move action to a vehicle. You can choose to do a full throttle, where depending on its size, you have a chance of boosting its movement or wrecking its engine a bit, disabling its second possible action for the turn. Another action you can do is shooting, which is pretty straightforward. Ramming, which lets you ram into adjacent vehicles. You can also just draw salvage cards, which are these little guys, and they're really useful for helping you do little abilities. You can only play one of these per player per turn, so you can play one on your turn, and you can also play one on another person's go. And finally, if there's like a wrecked vehicle, you can drive up to it, spend an action to take the vehicle off the board so it needs to respawn later instead of being repaired, and take one of these salvage cards from the other player.
So you've got your objectives set up on the board here, and the way in which you win is on your turn. You drive onto one of them, and you sit there. And then at the end of your turn, it'll go green. And that means you've been sitting there like a good boy for your whole turn. And then you have to survive your opponent's turn. And by survive your opponent's turn, I mean not get shot at and wounded. Don't shoot me, bro.
Well, if I did shoot you, it would result in you turning your control point back to red.
And also taking a damage.
Oh yeah, which are these really cool things.
I love this.
Look at that.
Oh my god, I've been damaged. Now I'm carrot top.
But if I did miss, so let's say I did do a double 1.
I wouldn't have to make it red.
No, and you wouldn't take any damage.
Hooray! That's a much preferable result for me. But if I am hit, it would go back to red, and I would have to wait there longer. However, I am still on the objective, so on the subsequent turn, it would become green again. Or at the end of Ben's turn, after he's wounded me, it would become green again. However, if he misses and it remains green, his other option is to ram me. I think ramming is preferable because it's more intimate. but also because it moves the enemy's piece off of the objective and allows you to take a free action to move onto the objective. Now that free action happens whenever you ram someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be on an objective, but when it is on an objective, it's even sweeter. So let's say Ben doesn't have enough movement to ram me here, and I'm left here on the token, on the objective. The objective's green, and at the end of Ben's turn, if he's been unsuccessful in moving my wrecker, I'm going to score that token, which means that I get to grab it, and it's now mine. And that's 1 point for me at the end of the game. Bearing in mind, whoever has the most points is, of course, the winner. After this has happened, Ben's going to look at how many objectives have been claimed, and he's going to figure out where more objectives go. 4.
So we consult this handy little chart over here, and 4 is corresponding to this hexagon. And because there's no other objective markers in the hexagon, I'm able to place a new red side up one anywhere as long as it's not along an edge of the game board. So I might just put one here to make it more interesting. If there was already a salvage token inside this hex, it would instead be put in the middle where there is any number of hex of these salvage tokens can be. There's always 4 out on the board at any one time. And as long as you haven't taken, like Mike said, haven't been rammed or taken any damage while standing on one, then you're able to score it on another player's turn.
Yep. And so if 2 or more were scored at the end of the round, Ben would repeat this process for each token that was taken.
Yep. So this is a quick overview for the combat system in Wreck and Ruin. Any vehicle can shoot, and their firing arc is 3 spaces in front of them for 3 hexes away. So in this example, the big rig is just in range of the wrecker. If the big rig wants to spend an action to take a shot, you consult this handy chart here, you find the wrecker, and you have a look at its attack stat, which is 2. 2 means you roll 2 dice, and and then you look at your target, which is the big rig, and you look at the armor for the target. So with the 2 dice you're rolling, you need to equal or exceed the armor value in order to do some damage. Simply enough, well, that's good. That's 2 hits. So that would do 2 damage to the big rig, which we can place on it in any fashion we like. We're going on fire. That took a while. One thing to notice about the big rig is, unlike other vehicles who are limited to their forward firing arc, big rigs have a range of 3 hexes in all directions from either of the 2 hexes they cover. In this example, I'm going to show how ramming works. In order to ram, you need to be in a space adjacent to the car you want to ram. If you start your turn not adjacent to the car, you're going to get a bonus when you do the ram, symbolizing a kind of momentum for hitting the car. The wrecker is a bit special. For 1 action, it can move up to 3 spaces in a straight line as part of its ram action. So it doesn't need to spend 2 actions to move and then ram. When you want to ram a vehicle, you check the armor value of your vehicle. So for the wrecker, it's 5, so they are the best at ramming. And you want to roll 5 dice and count up the number of successes you roll. The number of successes you roll, you then add to your size stat. So let's just roll these. So in this example, I've gotten 4 successes because you're comparing it with the armor of the buggy, which is 4. The number of successes you add together with your size stat, and if you took a run up, you also get another one. So in this example, I have 4 plus 1 plus 3 successes. The buggy will then have a chance to sort of deflect the blow. The buggy will then roll its armor value and try and beat your armor value. So here the buggy scored no successes, so something really bad is going to happen to the buggy. When you succeed in a ram, the defender will take damage equal to what they didn't sort of deflect with their roll. The attacker will then be able to move them into one of the 3 spaces behind them, so it can move there, there, and there, and can for free occupy the space the defender used to be in. In the event where the defender survives and rolls more successes than the attacker, if the vehicle has a bigger size value than the attacker, it will be able to do damage back equal to the difference in what it defended. The scouts can never ram vehicles because they're too flimsy to survive ramming anything bigger than them.
So as we can see here, this buggy has exploded and died. You can see because the hit points are tracked by these orange flames and this black smoke. The black smoke is the final hit point that's added to the vehicle to represent the fact that it's completely destroyed now. So now that this vehicle has been wrecked and ruined, it's going to possibly explode, but definitely go somewhere. And we're going to figure out how that happens according to this chart. We're going to roll a d6, and based on the result, which you get on this chart here, you can see that it's either going to go in a direction or it's going to explode. If we roll a 1, it just stays where it is and explodes, and everyone adjacent to it takes damage. If we roll anything but a 1, it moves in that direction, and then we roll another d6, and it goes that far. Like this. 5. Oh, I rolled a 6. Meow. This is only when it becomes wrecked or ruined from being shot. When it becomes wrecked or ruined from being rammed, you still roll a d6, but you're only going to take into account results of a 1. So, oh wow, the dice spins forever. Okay, 6. So I didn't roll a 1, so instead of taking the 6 direction, I just ignore it. If it had been a 1, I would have just exploded. But I will move, but I'll move in the direction in which I was rammed. In this case, I was rammed from behind. So I'll move 2 hexes towards the front.
One last thing to mention about vehicles is they have different armor values based on which part of the vehicle you're shooting or ramming. So in terms of shooting, the only difference in bonuses to attack is if you're shooting from behind, you get a +1 bonus to your rolls. When it comes to ramming, if you're ramming in the side, the defender rolls 1 less die to try and block your damage. When ramming from the rear, your defender gets 2 less die to block any of the incoming damage. The big rig, because it covers more spaces, actually has more sides than a smaller one. It has 1 rear and 1 front, but then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides that count as side armor. So that was a quick run through of the rules of the game. We're now just going to talk about how we felt about it. Theme.
Theme is a part of this game.
Yes, theme is a part of this game, Mike.
All right, so the theme is Mad Max. And I really like Mad Max. And I really like this theme. I mean, I haven't actually seen Fury Road, but I have seen the original movie.
This is very similar. I mean, this feels like a very skirmishy car warfare game in a desert. It's Mad Max all over it.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that kind of confused me was the things we're fighting over. I thought they would be fuel or something, but they're not. But what does fit very well with the theme is the tribes, and you get you pick up a sense of the world that we're in, despite being very light on sort of fluff and flavor text and all that kind of stuff.
It kind of lets you come up with your own narrative for what's going on beyond factions fighting over resources in the post-apocalypse. But
it just feels like a dirty sort of small-scale skirmish and a very sort of quick and dirty fight.
Yeah, it's fast. It's really fast. And I mean, it doesn't go into too much depth, as you said. It's quite light, but that means you can get it out quickly and you can sort of play it. And there's lots of laughing.
It does not take long to play.
No. It's quite random, but I think it's good for its length because you don't want a long random game. It's not too random, but it's random enough to be quite, laughable and aha, that totally happened. It's very cinematic in that way, and I think that's really good.
Yeah. Yep, certainly. I like the way the pieces feel different. They all have sort of different functionality. It's not overly complex, but there is enough sort of uniqueness going on to each of the different vehicles to give it sort of a sense of flavor and to sort of draw you a bit more into the theme and stuff like that.
I feel like it's you can play this game 1 to 4 players. No, 2 to 4 players, not 1. I feel like it would be quite a different. We've played with 3. Or every time I've played it, it's been with two or 3, and it's been quite a different game with multiple players, which is nice for replayability purposes. Also, you have these cards which change between games, and also the factions, you can play different ones between games. So you can play it multiple times and have definitely different experiences, especially with the events that come out. They're going to be different.
Yeah.
The salvage cards, they're going to be different every time.
These tiles are all different.
Oh yeah.
And double-sided.
Yeah, you get a bunch in the box and that you just randomly lay out. So, what about the mechanics?
Well, the central mechanic is the capturing of these objectives, which means on your turn, as much as you might want to focus on ramming and blowing up other vehicles, you really got to focus on two things. One is plopping your butt down on these objectives and staying there. The other is if someone else has plopped their butt down on those objectives, getting their butt off those objectives and getting your butt onto them.
It's King of the Hill, essentially. Well,
Ben, we discussed this. King of the Hill has one hill and one objective.
It's multiple King
dominance,
of the Hill.
token dominance.
Okay, this is token dominance with a tug of war feel and a bit of area control, kind of.
Mm-hmm. So these tokens, as we mentioned in the rules explanation, can wind up getting quite spread out as they're scored and randomly distributed. That would be illegal. Not randomly distributed, consciously distributed by other players. But I like this mechanic sort of in concept, but the way I found it played on the board was sort of fundamental to the way they're scored, because if you plop your butt down on it on your turn, at the end it goes green like we explained, and then if it was my turn at the end of Ben's turn, I would score that if I went unviolated. But what this means is it gives Ben a real pressure, like impetus, to get my butt off that token. So it kind of means like every next player is sort of forced to react what the player before them did, and it kind of really channels your focus into that.
Yeah,
which I found was It felt like I didn't quite have the freedom to do what I wanted to do all the time.
There wasn't much room for longer term strategy. Mm-hmm. It was all very, like you say, reactive to the previous player you're trying to ensure that you get points and stop other people from scoring points. And every turn, there's not really like breathing room.
Yeah, exactly. Because, especially if they've done quite well and they've got onto 3 tokens, then really you've got to get them off those tokens and stop them, because you're the only one that can do it. And if you don't, you run the risk of allowing them to score a lot of points. This can actually be quite frustrating for a third player, because it means that there's going to be one player that they almost never have a chance to stop. The only real influence they can have is if they have a salvage card, they can play on another player's turn to give them an advantage or a disadvantage based on what's taking place.
Well, actually, if you shoot someone off it, but you shoot someone while they're on one and it turns red, but they're not moved off it, then it's going to turn green for that third player's go. If that's player 1.
That's true.
That could happen. Anyway.
So that's, I guess that could be a tactical consideration if you're forcing the next player to deal with many vehicles on them.
That's a very good point.
But there's only 4 tokens, so, the fighting's quite concentrated.
Mm-hmm. So what about the combat system? I found it, like I said earlier, quite cinematic, especially the whole... crashing and burning, and
I like the crashing and burning. I like the exploding and zipping off across the map.
It's kind of justified with the idea that all these vehicles are moving very quickly all the time, and when one sort of loses control and crashes, they sort of fast forwards what happens to their car. They'll end up at, like, somewhere and exploded, and that's really satisfying, especially when you've just rammed like one of the bikes and they didn't have a chance and take like 20 damage or whatever. Mm-hmm. Something else I really like about the game is the exploding dice. So I didn't mention this in the explanation, but every time you roll a 6, it counts as a success regardless of modifiers, and you get to roll another dice, which means you can you can have a good chance of surviving as a bike.
I really like the minis in this game. Ben, what do you think about them?
I think they're pretty cool. I think they cater well to the visual aesthetic on the whole. Mm-hmm. The sort of post-apocalyptic theme really comes out in those minis. And, they're pretty high quality. I think... I'm not a minis guy. You're more minis than me.
Am I?
You're more minis than me, definitely.
I'm more minis than you, but Chris is more minis than both of us. At times 1,000.
Yes, but Chris isn't here.
So, I like the minis a lot. I think that they work really well for the... I mean, these are prototypes. I think they're 3D printed, actually.
Okay.
But they're really well done. And I really like putting the fire in them. This is a little fiddly, I gotta admit.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's also very pleasing. So it's kind of, give and take. I mean, given that the game is so fast, and you usually have time to just sit and put the fire in while something else is resolved, it's not that big a deal.
That's true.
Also, when they explode and they're taken off the board, they don't heal all their hit points, so the fire stays in there as well. And they function perfectly well. I like that they're visually very indicative of what they are, so it's not you're not like squinting at them to try and tell which one's a buggy and which one's a
which one's a big rig.
which one's a big rig, exactly. Well, the big rig's obviously very clear, but the wrecker and the buggy could have been much less distinct, but I'm pleased with how distinct they are. I mean, what I would love to see as a stretch goal would be sort of different minis for each faction.
That'd be cool. Yeah, definitely.
But if it came out with the same minis like this, I wouldn't have a problem with it. In a way, one of the major pros is that you can you immediately recognize all the vehicles.
Yeah, it's very easy to know your tactical situation at any one moment in the game.
Yeah, because you're like, right, that's a wrecker and they all look the same.
Yeah, and that's blue, it's not mine, and that's red, and that's mine, and yeah, it's easy to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, minis, thumbs up.
Yeah, mini thumbs up. What about the artwork? I think this artwork's really cool. I mean, there's not a lot of it, unfortunately, but what there is, it looks really nice. I think it's hand-drawn art, and it really does the job. I think it looks really cool. It'd be nice to see some artwork on the event cards and the salvage cards, but I can imagine that being a lot of work to be put into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Would be really nice, though.
Yeah. Also, I want to know where the mammoth is. There's a mammoth rider on the rule book.
Yep.
Stretch goal. Kickstarter exclusive.
Cool.
But I like the art. I mean, there's nothing here that pulls me out of the theme. It's neat that the turn counter's a bullet. That's a nice touch. Yeah. Like I said, the one thing, I guess this is an artwork thing, is the pictures on these tokens. Because they're all buildings. I don't understand how we can collect and keep buildings.
And they're quite low-res images for the prototype, so hopefully they'll be a bit...
Yeah. I would like to see them replaced with like canisters of oil or water or plants or something.
Oh yeah, that would be much better. So that's kind of what you need. You don't need...
Mm-hmm.
Well, they could... Yeah, they're just...
Or ammunition.
Maybe you're going in and scavenging these places. Maybe that was...
Yeah, and then when you take them off, it's like you've collected the stuff.
You've collected the stuff, you get your salvage card, and that's you done. So that's all we've got for Wreck and Ruin. Check it out on Kickstarter. September time-ish should be launching. If you like it, please back it. If you like the channel, please give us a like and a subscribe. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.